Welcome to Fan for Racing Radio. I'm Fan for Racing Sharon, and joining me is Jay Hughesman, and we had Chris Clayton here, but he disappeared on me.
Big black hole.
There he is. And we are the Fan for Racing crew for our NASCAR Hot Topic Sound Off tonight. This is episode 2517. We're, among our hot topics are the in-season challenge, Dale Jr., and possibly a new track. So who's going to get us started today? Jay, since you've been gone, let's start with you.
Well, I'll go with the new track if somebody fills me in. Is that the San Diego deal?
Well, San Diego has been talked about as a possibility for what are they talking about?
The road course, because if this is street course, there you go. Is that the one is that the one you're talking about as far as new track?
There's a new one. They're talking. I saw. Let me go to my bookmarks here because I saw some conversation on Twitter that were made by Steve O'Donnell. He says the days of building a rural track are over, but if we can build a track with some real estate development around it and partner with some people, we're going to look at major cities and bring the product to the fan base within the city. And then later on, I saw a post where they were saying that one of the locations they're looking at and considering is possibly Philadelphia, which is just a couple of hours away from Pocono.
Okay. When I heard that interview, that was kind of tied to the whole street course, whether it be San Diego or possibly then Philadelphia. Excuse me. Now I say, this was just in and around that conversation of the street course. I don't see him building a new track, period, whether it's in a rural area or outside of metropolis area. I understand what they're saying because they compared it to Chicagoland, saying Chicagoland was too far from the city. I understand one's perspective of it, but also, again, for an oval track race, you're not going to get a stadium unless you put it inside of a coliseum like they did in LA or do the street racing, which I think is what they were kind of alluding to when it comes to that. But I'm kind of excited. I know, Sharon, you're fond of Chicago, and it's been a great deal. I do think that is one of those, if they do for a 3-year window and move to another city. San Diego, that market obviously is very lacking since we don't have Auto Club anymore. So the Southern California, very specifically, I think is a good spot for it. The other issue then you get into is how many road courses, is too many. We had Mexico City.
Let me just kind of give some clarification here. I had to find it. And I know you were talking the whole time I was looking, but this is a post by Adam Stern on June 18th. It says, in a surprising development, NASCAR is considering a race in Philadelphia about 2 hours away from Pocono. It does not specify the street course race. It just says a race, and this comes after the comments. It comes the same day as the comments within close proximity of him saying the days of building a rural track are over, but if we can build a track with some real estate development around it and partner with some people, we're going to look at major cities and bring the product to the fan base within the city. So this does not sound like a street course race to me. This sounds like a track. So I think it's different than the street course that I don't know in San Diego.
When I heard, and I heard from that was part of O'Donnell's clip, it was in and around the rest of the conversation of the street course. Talking about San Diego, and then maybe San Diego gets it for a year or two, and then Philadelphia. And that's all I can say is that is in the context to which I heard that clip.
Okay.
But you're right. The way it says it, it does not specify that. What it pretty much does eliminate, unfortunately, is not going back to Chicagoland, even though that's a mile and a half, some of the best racing we had and I think would have. But I've talked long enough.
I don't think it eliminates Chicago, though. I think that if they take the street course race out of Chicago, I think it puts Chicago back into a possibility.
I say in the conversation I heard, and I want to say it was on the morning drive, but I might be wrong. I think it was Friday morning driving into Iowa when I was listening to that. Again, that's why they said Chicagoland kind of went away, was it wasn't deep in the city of Chicago or the metropolis area. Well, so they didn't feel like it was, Again, do I think, I've been there. I thought it was a great location. I don't necessarily want to drive downtown. Honestly, I'm a Cubs fan. Yeah, getting to Wrigley is a pain in the butt. I mean, so I would rather not have it downtown, but, they're looking at the mass.
Okay, I'll continue to look here, but I think it is separate from the street course race. This was on June 18th, the day that they posted that San Diego is a strong consideration. That was also on June 18th, but I don't know. He's talking about building a track. And to me, that's not a street course race. Go ahead, Chris.
Chris, jump in here.
Okay. So this was published in Newsweek. It was published on the day of June 23rd at 8:00 p.m. I guess that would be today. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro revealed that the state is in talks about the arrival of a NASCAR race in Philadelphia. At the event, which Pocono race, I need to make sure I'm not reading this in entirety so that we don't get any marks against us. At the event, which had selling more than 50,000 tickets to fans, NASCAR is rumored to have an interest in holding a race at Franklin Field. What NASCAR is trying to do is they're trying to recreate the LA Coliseum on the East Coast. And what they want to do is they want to invest into Franklin Field, which is in downtown Philadelphia, and they want to turn it into a permanent short track. A permanent short track. So they're going to basically use what they learned from the LA Coliseum and what they have over at Bowman Gray, and they're going to place in the downtown area of Philadelphia a facility that will be a full-time racetrack made from a Coliseum.
Gotcha.
The San Diego race is in talks to basically replace the Chicago race, and Chicagoland is being brought back to please that market in Chicago. Though it's not been officially announced, Carson Hocevar has left a couple of clues. One was flying over the Speedway. I do believe there's been a direct article that's talked about. Don't be surprised when you see Chicagoland on the 2026 schedule, as they plan to return there, because we are not going to come back to Chicago street course. So basically, NASCAR has decided that they're no longer in the business of building tracks. They're going to be in the business of creating tracks out of places that are there. And we can go deep into that if you want to, because I think that's kind of, I didn't know that we were a stadium truck series. I thought we were a legit track series. It's kind of weird. I understand what they're doing. As I continue to comment on this, I want it to be understood that I don't have what we're going on is speculatory, right?
Right.
But my addition to that is, why would we mess up the possibility of a great track like Pocono adding another race into the Pennsylvania region? So I'm sure NASCAR's got this worked out. They want to stay in this inner city as they continue to grow their fan base with the new fans that have obviously shown interest in the NASCAR. I don't think that NASCAR would pull the trigger with this if they didn't really feel and look at the direct data that they got from the LA Coliseum. This is one of those deals where, like I said, it's it's what's it called? It's playing. I mean, it's playing with the fan base. It's playing with the structure of the series. I don't know if I'm a big fan of it quite yet. If it's a race that's not a points race or something like that, maybe that's something that we can look at. But I just don't know how many expedition races we can add to a schedule. So this has definitely caught us off guard. We're looking at other places. I heard Detroit. I heard Cincinnati were places where we could possibly have a street course race. And then out of left field, this was announced about Franklin Field. So we're still trying to put things together on that end. Of course, I think for myself, it's too early to formulate an opinion. I can see us where we're trying to recreate what we had in LA, but more of a stable ground. Of course, you're not going to be able to buy the LA Coliseum. That is already, it's USC's home field. It's the Rose Bowl. I mean, it already has their. So I can see where NASCAR says, hey, if we come in and we basically buy this facility and we turn it into a full-time track, then we can kind of control what goes in and what comes out. So if that's NASCAR's way of, basically giving us an expedition race, there again, I don't know if you can have one of those kind of races in February before the Daytona 500 in a place like downtown Philadelphia. I mean, it's most of the time pretty bad weather there in the early months of February. So this would have to be somewhere like a midsummer race or maybe a late summer race. But, the timeline is what gets me the most is we're discussing the replacement street course, and now all of a sudden out of left field we get an announcement that, hey, we might be going Coliseum racing as well. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Sharon and try to get your opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression. I didn't hear about the Franklin Field part. I only heard that they were talking about inside the city of Philadelphia and building a track. My concern is that most of these cities are landlocked, and where would they build a track? But you've kind of clarified that with the Franklin Field. And I would see it as probably an exposition kind of race.
Exhibition. Neither one of you have gotten it right. Exhibition.
Yeah, exhibition.
I say expedition.
I'm tired. It's been a long day.
You followed Chris's lead right down. Yeah, shake your head.
Yeah, thank you. Exhibition. Is that right?
Exhibition, yes. I don't know.
Exhibition. Okay. It's been a long day. But
yeah.
I could see it being an exhibition race there. But it sounded from the article that you read that they wanted to have short track racing there for the long term. Did it say long term, Chris?
If it's a permanent, yeah. I mean,
yes, it's a permanent fix to an Olympic-sized stadium. More than a month ago, NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell spoke to the Associated Press about potentially adding a race in Philly. So, this is just more tied into what type of race. I guess what they're doing really with
permanent.
That is,
and not less like the Coliseum and more permanent like Martinsville.
Yeah. So obviously they're probably trying to clean up the rumors as they're really trying to land the street course deal. They wanted to separate the fact that this has nothing to do with the street course. This has something completely different. And as O'Donnell stated, this is not something that's going to be a this year or next year. It's something on down the road.
Down the road.
But it's definitely in the mix and in the plans to get something done.
Well, I'm never going to say never about NASCAR because I didn't think the exhibition race was going to work out well. I didn't think the street course race was going to work out well. And both of those things worked out fairly well. So I would say let's give it a chance and see how it works and go from there. A short track, we've got to fix the car for the short track. And I think we've made long strides in that. So if we continue to improve that short track product, I think that's a good idea. Jay?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm with you, Sharon, of never say never. I'm like the fact that they're open to it. I don't think if they're investing in it to become a permanent thing, it would just be the once a year exhibition.
Right.
My issue with it is, and this is where Chris kind of alluded to, that we're not a stadium style racing series. There are some great short tracks out there, such as Memphis, Chicagoland, whether Chicagoland comes back. Same thing with the road courses when you talk about going to a street course. And I get it. I've liked it. I understand they want to go into these markets. However, you pulled Road America, which was very successful. I know that one is may come back. We'll go there for a few years, take a break, come back. As always, I am sure they got very, very, very smart people, especially when compared to me, working on this, looking it over. However, when you talk about Pocono, Chris mentioned that. They talked about how successful that is. Same with Michigan, of when you went from 2 races a year, especially in close proximity. Generally, the 2 Pocono and the 2 Michigan races were all in the matter of about 8 weeks, June, July, maybe into August. That fans were choosing one or the other. When you only have one, you go to it because it's the only option you've got. So to bring in a race in Philadelphia, depending on what time of the year, and yeah, Philadelphia, you're going to be limited as far as that, of even trying to project weather as it comes to that, but you're looking at least deep into the spring, summer, or the tail end of the schedule. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I hope it is. Chris is going to laugh, but only once per year. We've already got races that have 2 per year that I think could still come off the schedule. So there again, that's where my issue with it comes in. Because like I said, I don't see them doing it as an exhibition. They're not going to invest in their whole own stadium just for an exhibition race when we have places we can go for said exhibition. And I know that's one of our other hot topics. And just watching off the side, I see we got a couple of viewers coming on as it just changed numbers. So welcome to the show. But they're talking about that, Bowman Gray, and trying to stay there longer than just a couple of years like we've seen in the past. So we'll have to wait and see what we get as far as more information. It certainly was new to me. I really thought that tied into the street course. So thank you for finding that, Chris, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so, let's talk about the 2 tracks that stand out the most in that region. Short track, Stafford Motor Speedway, and, of course, Thunder Road Speed Bowl. Those are 2 very prominent tracks that have been around for a very long time. It just kind of seems asinine that we're going to, try to build a Coliseum-style racetrack in the middle of Philadelphia when we have wonderful short tracks up through there, that if we're not really worried about how many fans can be stacked into the stadium and we're more worried about viewers on TV, then obviously those are more relatable. But what this has to be is NASCAR really is trying to get into that inner city fan base. And, as we've watched, of course, NFL teams and baseball teams move out of the city, it's kind of weird that we're seeing NASCAR trying to go into the city, because we watched Golden State Warriors. They moved out of the city. They moved into the more of the suburbs. You look over at Atlanta, when they closed Turner Field and built a new SunTrust ballpark, that's over in a completely different area in the suburbs of Atlanta. The same with the Falcons. So now NASCAR, I guess, looks at that as an opportunity that says, hey, we can invest into inner city investment and try to appeal to those race fans. As you said, Jay, there's a lot of people that are smarter than us, but this has to be the only effort in this is to gain inner city fans and try to grow that fan base.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't see it as an exhibition race, as Jay had said. I wasn't sure until you read that article, Chris, but it sounds like they want to make it something more permanent. They want to make it a short track, and they want to attract a different audience into NASCAR. So I think that's what this is all about. And there's been so many times that I've thought that I don't think this is going to work out very well when it has worked out well. So I just want to give it a chance and see how it goes. I agree with what you're saying, though, about being careful. I would think they had the Pocono race, in June this year? So I would think that if they're going to do it in the city of Philadelphia, they would have to make it a late summer, early fall type race if they're going to have it in Philadelphia. So they've got to separate it somehow so that fans can save up and choose. Or maybe it is an entirely different market since it is 2 hours away. I'm not 100% sure about that, but who knows? It's something that I'm sure they're looking at. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it just seems like it would be picking into the market of Dover and New Hampshire, and maybe that's one of the tracks that we may see go away here in the near future. There's been a drastic decline in New Hampshire Speedway. Dover is one of the only concrete tracks left, so I believe Dover would probably, if you had to pick one of the two to get rid of, it would probably be New Hampshire. So it's probably going to cost somebody. It's not going to cost Pocono their only race. I'm for sure of that. You don't take off a racetrack that sells out every year. So it would definitely be one of these tracks that are more northward that would probably pay the ultimate price for that type of track to come in.
Okay, Jay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, you'd have to hear NASCAR's direct thinking. I think it is a little bit different market than Pocono, but just as we did in the Southeast, you start oversaturating an area. I don't know what they consider that broad of an area. But even like Chris said, you're pushing up towards Dover. The New Hampshire, I think, is a little bit further and that is the only one we have that far northeast. But that goes back to my point. You named two of the tracks there in the New England area of some great short tracks and I just think about, we're still looking at Nashville and Memphis as far as in the Tennessee area that had some great short tracks. And we only had the Truck Series and the Xfinity at Memphis. That would be another one if we're looking at, but again, I realize they're not looking at that market. The one thing, the other thing to be cautious of, and I know this was the morning drive talking about it, even if we do it for 3 years and then leave, it's not quite the one and done. But what message does that send to the fans in that area if it's only viable for 3 years, or we're only going to do it for 3 years? But I think what they're doing is saying, hey, it may come back, even with, and I'll use Road America. It worked, or they used it for a couple of years. You're still on the list. It's not like we're totally shutting you out, shutting the door on you. But we may be seeing that of, in the past, we've talked about tracks, being able to survive on one race per year. Now we're talking about they got to go 3 to 4 years because they're in a rotation. So I don't know. Again, not involved in NASCAR. I'm glad they hire smart people.
Yep, I agree. Anything more you want to say, Chris?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm done too. Okay, so Chris, what's going to be our next topic?
Well, let's go to overall thoughts on racing at Pocono, NASCAR Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series. Honestly, I like the fact that we have 3 series there. The one thing that always comes into conflict is the Friday race, especially when there's not lights at the racetrack. That race on an East Coast race has to start particularly early, and those of us that work for a living or have other things to take care of on Fridays, we typically kind of miss that race. So I wasn't able to catch much of the Friday or Saturday race. But the Sunday race, I have, clear thoughts on that one. And, we're at an issue with not being able to pass. And I don't think we had a single green flag pass for the lead at Pocono, which is very concerning. Considering Pocono is one of the more high-speed tracks, it's basically going to give us a window of what we're going to have come when we go to Indianapolis. I think that there's definitely still some work to do. The typical cars that are fast ran up front. William Byron didn't have any issues passing anybody. Kyle Larson.
Ryan Blaney didn't have any issues passing.
Right, but for some reason, there's a reason why nobody was able to pass for the lead. So I'm not sure how you can pass 27, 30 cars and not be able to get around the leader. Those stats just don't equal up. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it was just a fuel mileage race, which generally stinks up the show. Of course, it was claimed at the time that Chase Briscoe was going to be 3 to 4 laps short, needed to save fuel. We didn't see that in the end. I don't know if that was a right hand. Watch my right hand as my left hand does something else. It's of course Denny Hamlin finished second, so you had a JGR 1-2. Blaney finished third. Blaney was not in. He was very ill when he got out of the race car. His vest did not work properly, so
his cooling suit.
His cooling suit did not work properly, so he was well dehydrated and probably close to a heat stroke, being that these are the hottest temperatures that these racers have seen all season long. So, I think basically it was kind of a poor weekend, to be honest with you. After a lot of excitement that we've had from Mexico and from Michigan and all, Pocono's been a really good race the last few years. So I don't know if I'm really quick to judge and say, hey, it was a terrible race, but definitely there is something going on with being able to get around the leaders. Anytime that you have a race where there's nobody that passes for the lead, I think it makes you sit back and wonder what exactly is going on. Is it the car? Is it Goodyear? Is it that these teams have just gotten away from the other teams? If you look at who's won this season, it's JGR, Penske, and Hendrick, and Trackhouse. Those are the only 4 teams that, if you want to count Wood Brothers on their own, you can, but I count them as a Penske car, because that's where the car comes out of. So we haven't seen the diversity that we've seen in the past. Maybe these guys just have the ultimate advantage right now. What JGR is doing is unbelievable. Like, we haven't seen this much dominance from JGR. I think now they have 7 wins on the season, cumulative 7 wins, 3 from Bell, 3 from Denny, and 1 from Chase Briscoe. So it's hard to sit here and say, oh, Hendrick this and Hendrick that, when you got JGR that's got 7 wins on the season. Miss Sharon.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was busy working on something there. I thought there were 11 lead changes among 9 drivers. So there were lead changes. Excuse me. There were lead changes for that race. Let me see. I've gotten away from it now. I'm coming back here to do it. Give me 1 minute. There were 11 lead changes among 9 drivers, 7 cautions, and 31 yellow flag laps. I do know that Ryan Blaney had to race from the back twice. Kyle Larson started at the back and raced his way up to the front. Brad Keselowski had a penalty. He raced his way up to the front. And they were passing for the lead. So I don't see that there was a problem with passing for the lead. I just don't see it. I can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah, those are all during pit strategies. The lead changes come all throughout pit strategies.
But that's still part of the race. I mean, to me, I don't have a problem with that. And it did not take away from the race for me personally. So I thought 11 lead changes among 9 drivers. I thought there was a lot of great racing throughout the race. And I enjoyed the races. And I think that I'm sad to see Prime Video going, because I thought Prime Video did a great job with making the race exciting to watch for me. And I enjoyed all of the races on Prime Video. They gave really good information. I loved the gas mileage. When we were watching the gas mileage for Chase Briscoe, they were telling us, he was getting 5 miles to a gallon, 5.7 miles to a gallon. Everybody else was getting 4.7 or 4. They were getting less gas mileage. So it was giving us an idea of what was happening with Chase Briscoe, and was he able to save enough to be there at the end. So to me, it was exciting. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all of the races that were at the track this weekend. So, Jay, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is one of the races in tracks, and it's been that way forever, though. It's not nothing about the new car or this gen car.
Right.
You either figure Pocono out and can run all 3 corners, because, again, they're all 3 different corners, and you figure it out and set your car up to manage all 3. I'll say that you kind of do see this. If I were to side with fans or people, whether they're fans or not, that say there's no passing up front for the lead under green flag race conditions, this would be one that I would have to put on their side of you may not see that. Typically, it does come down to a fuel mileage race, but so did Michigan, and we saw 3 wide battles for the lead there. I'm with Sharon, though, of even if I don't see a side-by-side drag race for the lead every lap, that to me doesn't make it a bad race or say that they can't have, or it's not good racing. Watching the entire race, you mentioned several drivers that did come through the field. Now, with that, is there something that needs to be done so a car can one-on-one pass another car up front when it comes? Again, the closer you get to the front, though, the harder it's going to be to pass, because your front or your top guys are the top guys for a reason. I don't remember what track it was, and I don't want to call anybody out, but the announcer one time said, "Oh, those fast 3 guys out front, they're fast." Well, duh. I mean, that's why they're out front. No, it wasn't you, Chris. I would have sold you out in a heartbeat. So, yeah, I'm like, there's a reason it's harder to pass the closer you get to the front, because those are your top drivers and your fast cars. So, I mean, let's use some common sense there, right, of that. And I know, Chris, you gave the stats there on JGR. I don't know if they have gotten enough credit for that. You're right. We do talk a lot about Hyak Motorsports, and especially being that they're back on track, if you will, because prior to them winning any this year, it had been mid-June, I think, when Christopher Bell won last year, and they went missing in action since then. They didn't have anybody in the championship floor. So they are back on track where they should be, going head-to-head with Hyak Motorsports.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the difference of opinion. Typically, on a Pocono race, it's not always been my favorite. As you said, we can date all the way back to 1995. Larry Mack was just talking about how it was the only race that he ever won with Dale Jarrett, and it come down to a fuel mileage race, and Jeff Gordon, something happened to him, and they were able to capitalize on it. So Pocono is Pocono. The fans enjoy it. It's a great place to go to enjoy a race. As for the TV side of it, I think the track's really big. And racing seems to span out. The restarts were crazy. Watching Carson Hocevar try to leapfrog 3 or 4 cars at a time, seemed to be consistent throughout the race. There was 2 or 3 cars that could or did what they could do to try to get around certain cars on the restarts. At least we had cautions. At least we had things go wrong. We had mechanical issues. JGR to be so dominant on one side, you flip the coin, and their sister cars, 2311, all 3 of them experienced detrimental problems. So it's kind of like somebody didn't get the notebook. Somebody didn't, we think all these guys are reading off the same notes, but obviously
there were a lot of rotor problems.
Yeah. So why would you not have the best of brakes going into Pocono when we know Pocono is always an issue? I kind of felt bad for Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace knows how hard it is to hit at Pocono, and I think that we've seen that right away. That the moment that tire let go, he was embracing for the impact. He knows what that feels like. If y'all remember, I think he was with Richard Petty Motorsports, the 43 car. He lost some brakes and tried to knock down the wall, similar to the same way Jimmy Johnson did. I'll stay right here, right now. In 2017, Jimmy Johnson's career got ruined at Pocono because of brake failure that led him to head-on collision into the wall, and he was never the same after that. And people can argue that all they want to. Statistics say he never recovered from that. Maybe his downfall had already started, but something happened that day. And so we're used to the hard hits at Pocono. Of course, Kurt Busch, with the inception of this car, he got injured there. So we know the types of speeds that these guys carry into those corners are very dangerous. And I feel bad for Bubba, knowing that he was already told on the radio that the 35 had brake issues and to be kind of be aware of what was going on. And Tyler Reddick, he didn't even take any chances. If y'all noticed, and it wasn't really talked about, Tyler Reddick took his car to the garage. And they were working on the front wheel. So I can almost guarantee you they were doing something there with the brakes in order to make sure that he didn't hit the wall like Bubba. The one thing that I did question was whether or not Bubba went to the infield care center. And I'm not sure if anybody, he did go to the infield care center. Well, when the TV pointed back to Bubba, he was walking in the pit area. I guess he didn't give an interview at the time or something to that.
Right. He didn't give an interview right away until after he left the infield care center.
Okay. So that's what it was there. So, I mean, I think he's going to be penalized for dropping the window net. I'm not sure why that, I understand why that arises to a penalty, but I think it was pretty much just Bubba saying, hey, I'm okay. Like, I hit the wall hard. That's the first thing that goes off in your mind, is to let everybody know you're all right, and probably wanted to just take the car back to the garage if need be. That's what I thought he did, and so that he didn't have to go to the infield care center. But with that type of hit that he put into the wall, I definitely would want to make sure that he did go to the infield care center so that he could be evaluated. As we've said, this racetrack has been known to be a career killer. Not even counting what happened to Robert Wickens in the Indy car that paralyzed him after going into the fence there. So, Pocono is a dangerous place, and we've seen some of the most god-awful wrecks. If you'll think about Earnhardt and Park, Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Park wrecking.
Yeah, that's one that came to my mind.
Yeah, that's the place of incident where Elliott Sadler hit the inside wall and literally jacked the motor out of the car. And not
to mention Adam Petty. Wasn't that at Pocono?
So Adam Petty did what?
Adam Petty died.
That was in New Hampshire where the throttle hung.
Oh, that was at New Hampshire? Okay.
Yep.
Irwin and Adam Petty died in the same year, both one at the spring race and the other at the fall race in New Hampshire. But Pocono's, go back to Bobby Allison. Pocono's been a career killer for a lot of racers. So try to move on from that. The Xfinity race was really cool. I think that was a big deal for Dale. I mean, you kind of think, so Dale Jr. said in his earlier podcast that anytime a driver goes through the hitch up at the top, that they're definitely cheating. And the first thing that Connor Zilisch did after winning the race was go through the roof hatch. I'm still waiting for Junior to give us an update on why it was not a cheating thing for Connor to go through the roof hatch. But maybe you guys have a little bit more info on that as I pass the baton.
Well, I know that Connor did go through the roof hatch, and the interviewer asked him about it and said, your boss doesn't like it when drivers go through the hatch? And he goes, well, it's too bad. He's going to have to live with it. It's
already done.
Kind of thing, huh? Yeah, he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, well, it's already done. So what am I going to do? Jay, what were your thoughts? Well, you didn't see the Xfinity race. You listened to it on the radio. So what were your thoughts listening on the radio?
Yeah, well, and there again, you get into the debate of whether or not radio makes it more exciting than TV, and I get that debate. That's their job because you can't see anything. But it sounded like a good race. Again, I understand. Like I said, if I were to put a track on the side of no passing, um, you know, for the lead, Pocono would be at the top of the list. I get it, but as it mentioned, it's a very unique track. Other things do happen, the fuel mileage. So I still find it as an entertaining race, as we saw. And I think, I mean, you look at the variety of some drivers we have did have, let's go with that, some good runs of John Hunter Nemechek, Ryan Preece, Chris Buescher. So I think it's a good mix. I like it. It has its place. Is it the most exciting short track bumping and banging? 3 wide for the lead? No, other than on restarts, and that maybe makes up for it, as you said. Of certainly has the entertainment value there with the stage breaks and whatnot. But so I still find it a great race. I know the one thing they said the biggest thing Pocono did, not even going down from 2 races to 1, but cutting the last 100 miles out. They used to be 500-mile races. They went down to 400. I think that was a very good move. I also, and they never really got to do it the way they had planned because of COVID, but I think that is one where you could do the Saturday, Sunday, do 2 cup races in the same day, or not in the same day, the same weekend. They do Saturday, then they inverted the field or the top, however many. I don't remember how many they were going to do. I thought that concept was good. And again, you use up 2 races, if you will, for points. If you're going there, you get your money's worth because you got 2 cup races. So I kind of like that concept that they had going there with that, and thought maybe we'd see more of that.
Yeah, I enjoyed the race. I particularly enjoyed watching Dale Jr. being a crew chief and jumping down and helping with the tire for the pit crew. He was the one that grabbed the tire when they rolled it back to the pit, and he'd grab it and pull it over. But I noticed some of the guys were down there helping him do that. But I thought it was a good idea. And we know that, the reason he did that is because the crew chief Marty Lindley had been suspended for that race. And so they needed a crew chief, and he decided he was going to sit on the pit box. I thought that was a good idea for a team owner to do. And I thought it was a good idea for him to jump down and be a part, to practice with the pit crew and to do those things too. I think it makes him a better team owner. But I just felt that the race was a good race. I thought it was exciting watching Connor Zilisch, race that race and get that lead. He was, one of the guys that passed for the lead. So, and Dale Jr. became one of a list of a few crew chiefs that have won their first race this season. And so there's been a list of those this season of crew chiefs getting their first victory this season, and I thought that was exciting too. So there's a lot of little things that you can celebrate in a race, and I do enjoy watching the race, but I enjoy some of the other things that go on there too, and that this made this race, I think, a little more exciting, knowing that Dale Jr. was on top of the pit box. But the race itself, to me, was a really good race too. Chris?
Yeah, I'm pretty much sold on y'all's thoughts and banner from this past weekend. It's a typical.
What about the truck race?
Huh?
What about the truck race?
So, yeah, I mean, both. I've felt throughout this season and the last couple of seasons, the better racing has actually come from the Truck Series race and from the Xfinity Series race. Those guys And I think a lot of it has to do with how the stages are played out. You got a lot shorter stages. I think it was like a 20, 20, and 60, or 40 for the trucks, and similar with the Xfinity series, so that you weren't really having to do this fuel mileage gamble and all that other crap. Look, with stage racing, we don't know. 500 laps may be better for the racers. I've never been one of those that wanted to cut laps of any race. I feel like that's actually taken away from the value of the at-track experience. If they ever made it to Talladega 400, I think there's a lot of us that would be very upset that we didn't get to lap 188. I mean, that's our that's kind of the that's what we want to see there. So maybe flip the coin. It could be better. It could be worse. I guess whatever. But they definitely have a better groove with the stage racing for the Xfinity and the Truck Series race. I don't think I think once you bring the crew chiefs in it, and you have engineers who start manipulating the race based off of fuel mileage and whatnot, it really takes away. The last thing that you want to see, and this is what I hear all the time with plate racing, they're not full throttle. They're not actually racing. They're hanging back. And we've had 2 finishes this year in back-to-back races on an oval where the guy who won the race wasn't pushing it the hardest. And that's, to me, that's concerning. Jimmy Spencer will tell you that's a crock of dunk. So, and he'll say he won't keep it PG. So,
Okay. Well, that's good. Jay?
Well, the only thing, and I didn't chime in on air here as far as Dale Jr. being the crew chief. Yeah, I thought that was great. I don't know what the list is as far as Cup Series drivers anyway that have become crew chiefs. I know Tommy Baldwin comes to mind. I don't know that he had a cup, but we've seen that with a lot of drivers. And I know it was kind of even Junior said it for show. He was the figurehead. He had a lot of people in his ear helping him make decisions, but he's one that ultimately did. But I do think it was good for the sport, and I appreciate the fact that he was hands-on, to step into that role. And again, I didn't get to see it. They said that he was pacing and not wanting to make certain decisions, but was being told that was the right thing to do. And we see that. We hear that in driver crew chief communications. The driver doesn't have the same picture. I won't see bigger picture or better picture, but the same picture when it comes to that. So I thought it was an interesting storyline, and it all played out of Connor Zilisch getting the win. For those that want to buy into the conspiracy, again, there's your fodder. I don't buy it. Connor had the car and drove up to win, like you said, Sharon, made the pass at the end. It wasn't based off of a caution or anything else that was manufactured. So I'll try and keep that opinion to myself. But I thought it gave a good storyline to it. But yeah, overall, I did think it was great racing. I will say, I take that back. I will say good racing. I will not say great.
Okay.
Wasn't there an incident between maybe Chase Elliott and
Justin Allgaier?
Yeah, Justin Allgaier and Chase Elliott.
Pseudo teammates. Yeah, pseudo teammates.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any information what caused that? Basically,
they just they had racing contact for some reason. I think Justin Allgaier, a lot of people had tires going down and stuff. I don't know if he had a tire going down and they had contact or what exactly happened, but it was something along that order.
Two cars in the same space just don't work. And again, I was listening on the radio, and I wouldn't remember who drifted up, but yeah, they just ran out of space. Whoever was on the bottom, I guess, lost the car a little bit and came up, and it hurt Allgaier obviously worse than Chase Elliott, because they said Allgaier dropped like a rock. Elliott was able to gather his back up, regain momentum, and move back up a couple of spots.
That's right. I will say this, when you talk about the Truck Series race, one thing that I think we need to remember about the Truck Series race is that's a development series. So is the Xfinity series. You've got drivers that are coming up from the Xfinity, from the ARCA Menard series into the Truck Series. They've never experienced pit stops before. So this is their first introduction to live pit stops and and having shorter races, again, it's a transition for a lot of these drivers that are working up the ladder of NASCAR's top three. And the Truck Series is the entry level of that. That's why the races are shorter. That's why they have the live pit stops in most cases. I know there's been exceptions to that. Same thing in the Xfinity Series. They're a little bit longer. Again, they're transitioning into another series where they're getting that development of developing their endurance. And then they get to the Cup Series, and it's all about endurance. It's all about those longer races with the pit stops. And it's a different skill set that they're learning at each level as they go up that ladder. So I like the way it's set up with the shorter races with the Truck Series, the medium races in the Xfinity Series, and then the long endurance races in the top premier series of the sport, where by the time they get into the Cup Series, in most cases, they've gone through a lot of different learning curves as they've worked their way up to that Cup Series. We've had a few drivers that have moved up into the Cup Series, I would say prematurely, because they didn't get that opportunity to go through the different levels and to learn some of the key things that they're supposed to learn at those levels before they get to the Cup Series. And Carson Hocevar is a prime example of that. He's learning things that he would have normally learned in the Xfinity Series. He's learning it in the Cup Series, and it's more apparent. There's more focus on it because of that. But I like the way it is. I like the progression that the drivers go through as they come through the different series into the Cup Series, which is the top level, and that's where we should expect to have the best drivers. And I saw great racing all the way around. Go ahead.
One thing I know we kind of went off on that, being that we were talking about the race length, but in this day and age of the next gen car, and over even before that, the last couple, it used to be the longer Cup Series races was a matter of endurance, not just for the driver, but the car. We don't see the car as much. I know we've had Ryan Blaney had argued with me. We don't see engine failures no more. Ryan Blaney would disagree.
Yes,
I get it. Denny Hamlin had one, but that was his own doing by putting his bad mojo on him, messing with the Texas fans. But we don't see that as much. So I wouldn't be as opposed to shortening races as I would have been in the past, because it's no longer about the endurance of the car.
But it's
I know we talked
about the driver.
Right, and that is still there. And again, we have to use Ryan Blaney as an example of you still got to have the endurance, whether it be in this day. Now it's the cool suit failure. And we have seen that. We hadn't heard that in a while, so that's been fortunate. But we've seen that when they go to not working, they really actually do harm you more than anything. So I still think that's something NASCAR needs to, or somebody needs to look at. Can be very detrimental. But so I'm just saying that we don't see that as much with the car itself. Although, again, this weekend there was the brake issue you mentioned, Sharon. But I think that's the teams, like you say, with the tires or the air pressure, the team's pushing it. You know,
it was the rotors. The rotor was actually exploding. Bubba Wallace's rotor had pieces flying all over the track.
But there again, that goes back to what size brake pads they use, the air cooling they have on them, and different things that they can adjust and handle to not put themselves in that position. It seems like 2311 maybe got a little aggressive on their brake package.
Yep, I would agree with that.
But I was curious if that affected your opinion, Chris, on whether or not they should still have the longer races like we've seen in the past.
Well, I'm a big proponent for failure, for parts failure, for mechanical failure. And I feel like that's something we've gotten away from with the advancement in technology, is the fact that this is a series of endurance as much as it is of lap to lap battles. And unfortunately, better engineering, better technology has taken away a very important piece to what NASCAR racing was. Of course, you look at the Coca-Cola 600, I think the very first one had 72 cars started, only 18 cars finished. So we've come a long way from those numbers.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I do want to see parts failures. I do want to see, and look, we have them.
We do have them.
We have a ball. What is it? The ball joint. What's that? What do they call it? The where the wheel breaks or whatever going.
The hub, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the greatest thing about that is they're able to fix that within a couple of laps there on pit road. I think it takes about 5 minutes to fix the toe link. So at least with that, we have something that can put a little bit of strategy up in there. If a car gets into a wreck, he may be completely able to go down the pit road and get that toe link fixed if he's not completely destroyed on the rest part of the car. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to see any more races shortened. It may have worked for Pocono. I think we could probably go both ways on that. But I definitely don't want to see any more races shortened for sure.
And more races shortened. Yeah, I'm in favor of that too.
Yeah, again, certainly not any shorter than the 400 that we've seen. Dover and Pocono being the two that they cut those on. But you're right, Chris, and Sharon and I talked about it on the reviews. I think in all three series, it was 30 or more out of the 36 to 38 starters that were finishing on the lead lap or only 1 or 2 laps down, not like we used to see of it be in the 20s, even 25. Not that far back wasn't abnormal to see multiple laps down due to some type of failure. I'm with you. Again, I don't want to see anybody wreck or, big incidences, but to see more of that, hey, can your car hold up as well? Because that too, we always talk about the horsepower and everything else, put it back in the driver's hands. Some of that does go into the driver's hands of how hard you push it. And I know you're saying then you're not giving 100%, but that goes into the strategy. We saw it with Ty Gibbs, and I think back to Bristol, tires / motor, whatever, just pushing too hard early on in a run, used up his equipment, and then Denny Hamlin went coasting on by, and Ty Gibbs was the one dropping like a rock. So it still factors in, just not as much as we've seen it in the past. And I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that either.
Well, and I think that a lot of times too, these guys, like you mentioned, 2311 with the brake rotor, they tried something with that package that obviously did not work. Because not everybody's brake rotor was exploding, but everybody was more cautious about their brakes after they saw so many brake rotors exploding. Flat tires, 90% of the time when they have a flat tires because they've adjusted the tire pressure that is beyond what was recommended by Goodyear. And they know that they're doing that, and they know that that's why they're getting the flat tires. If they didn't make those adjustments, if they didn't push that envelope a little bit, they wouldn't get those flat tires, but they are trying to do what they can to get as much grip as they can on the track. So I understand why they do it. I just think that sometimes it's self-defeating because you end up losing on the other side of it. But I do think that I've kind of forgot where we were going now, but
just the strength and endurance of the car itself overall.
I think it's good that the car is more durable, because think about it, the race fans are paying money to watch their driver race on that track. If that car is damaged and they can't race anymore, they're sitting there, upset because they can't watch their driver in that race. So that's why they made these cars more endurable, because the fans can watch their drivers race the race after paying the money that they paid to get in. So there's still endurance. It's just the endurance of the driver for that length of time. As we talk to younger drivers that are coming into the sport, that's one of the things that they learn, when they're coming into these series is I've never raced a race that long before. So I've done extra conditioning to prepare.
Pace yourself. Pace yourself.
Exactly. I've done things differently to condition myself to be able to race the long races. So I think it's still a good thing from my perspective.
There is, and I mentioned that in the review of it. It is good because, and I'm not saying they're all front runners, top 5 competitive, but to see 30 cars out there still running at the end means that they're in competition, not in the garage. So that's the other drawback to it, or a benefit of it, is you have more that say will have a shot or could have a shot at good finish, if not the win. But I'm with Chris. I kind of like seeing that of, hey, is the car going to hold up? Whose car is going to make it the 500 miles or the whole distance? So it's kind of a trade-off back and forth.
Well, instead, it's who's playing with the tire pressure, who's going to get the
right.
flat tires.
Doing it themselves. That's right.
Yeah. 2311 had the problem with the brake rotor this week. So we still had those things, like Chris said. It's just we're keeping more of the drivers in the game, if you will. Chris, did you have anything more you wanted to say?
The last thing I want to do is go back to the start and park era. So I mean,
yes.
we have to trade some things for for others. I'm glad that we have cars that are finishing the race. As you said, a great point, Sharon. People pay a lot of money to see their racer race. I think that's kind of why they changed the rules on the DP clock, allowing cars to go back to the garage and get repairs. Because we've been to several races where somebody got wrecked out early, and the guys next to us were like, "Well, we're going home." Like
right.
Exactly.
It's like, wow. You were
and
here
they
all
paid
weekend,
all that money to be there.
Yeah, now they're hitting the interstate early. So yeah. But outside of that, I think I pretty much have covered my end of the topic.
Jay?
No, I got nothing else there.
Oh, okay. Let's go. Let's see. Xfinity Truck. Oh, the in-season challenge seating. There's a lot to talk about here. They came out with the seating for the in-season challenge, and I don't know if you guys are going to be able to read this, but I've got something that's a little bit different than the bracket that I can put up that will show the matchups for the in-season challenge. Now I know I can double tap my computer screen and it makes it big, and then I can see it a lot better.
Well, Sharon, I got some info for you as I was looking more into it and kind of did my own bracket. The track, what was the other one? Track and similar and something where you said you didn't know what the numbers meant?
Oh, yes, track type.
Yeah, okay. So what that is the number of times that those two drivers in that particular matchup have faced each other, or they could match them up head to head on either that type of track or a similar type track. How many times this year? Different ones had different numbers to go with it. If you're looking to get involved in this betting program or whatever, it's how many times those two drivers have met head to head on that type of track or a similar type track, or this year, that's what that number is telling you of how many times which driver has come out ahead from that aspect.
Okay. So yeah, that's good to know then, because I couldn't figure out why there were so many zeros on. It just wasn't. I couldn't compute it. Anyway, the other things is it tells you the matchup 1-on-1, the number 1 seeds. Actually, the number 1 seed against the number 32 seed is the first matchup. And Denny Hamlin has 71 career starts compared to Ty Dillon's 24. So you get a feel for that. How many seasons have they been racing? And if you, again, looking at Denny Hamlin and Ty Dillon, Denny Hamlin's been racing for 12 seasons compared to Ty Dillon's only 4 seasons. And then 5 times at that particular track, I guess. That doesn't make sense though either. Head-to-head comparisons, track. Yeah, I'm not sure. But you said the matchups, that particular matchup, and how many times?
Right.
Okay. So I wanted to get you, can you guys see this on the screen?
I did find that one and looked at it, and Chris just sent it in our group messenger, so
Yes.
I could expand it there. But I did take a look at it. There's definitely some interesting ones, and Atlanta is one that's really tough to predict.
Because it's like a super speedway track. So you
That
got to
is-
look at
right.
who are your super speedway drivers.
In between, yeah, specifically, I know during the review and when we kind of touched on it, one of the matchups, it's number 16 and 17 seed Kyle Busch versus Brad Keselowski.
Yes.
Both of them can be very good there. We know Kyle Busch not that long ago was involved in a 3-wide photo finish. Brad Keselowski, as of recent, has been knocking down top 10s. So I was like, man, that's a complete toss-up as I was just looking through some of the matchups. I did a real quick full chart all the way through the whole bracket. I wasn't going real in depth with all the numbers that you were given there, just kind of a gut feeling or who I think. Man, it's going to be interesting. But that was one of the matchups I certainly did
I think
have
that's
an
the most
issue with.
compelling one right there. Chris, did you get a chance to look at it, and which matchup did you feel was the most compelling?
Well, I mean, first I want to bring to point and ask around the room: do any of y'all not have a problem with Denny Hamlin skipping a race and now being the number 1 seed? Did he not kind of cash in on that? I mean, we're
He
talking
is
about
the
$1
number 1
million
seed.
here, but he skipped a race. He should have had a did not start, which should have made him further down in the seeding. I mean, how can
I
we
didn't
make
have any
everybody else
problem
on
with it.
3? We are basing everybody else on a 3. I want things to be fair. Everybody else had 3 races, and third race means an opportunity for something bad to happen. When Denny Hamlin did not start a race, and he did not get discredited for that, and he can take the number 1 seed because he got 1 win on 2 starts, to me that's bogus. And if he wins the $1 million, then I would definitely have an issue with that. Am I the only one in this room that sees an issue with that?
I don't know who else. I don't know who else is in that room with you, but no, here on the video, I hear what you're saying. There was no penalty for missing the race. However, the way the rules was your best finish. He got the win. That puts him in the top 3 by running
a second.
And okay. So that's why he's the number 1 seed. He was already pretty much locked in because somebody else would have had to won a race and finish second. Then I think had that needed a third tiebreaker, they would have had to have given it to the other driver who had a third race result, whereas Denny Hamlin wouldn't have had one at all. We'll just use Chase Briscoe.
Since he finished second in the second race, that was basically better than anybody else in what they had done. That counts out the middle race that he skipped.
So SVG wasn't even eligible, so you take him out, nobody else has a win. Chase Briscoe got a win. He has the second race to try and match Denny Hamlin's, which this race he was there and got second, which means Briscoe would have had to have had a second either in Mexico City or at, where did we start this at? What was the first race that Hamlin won?
Michigan.
After Nashville. I don't even remember now.
Well, let me see. I've got that graphic too. Hold on.
So now, like I said,
City of Pocono.
What was that?
Michigan.
Okay, there we go. Michigan.
Yeah.
So I mean, it ends right there because Denny Hamlin with the 2 race, to me, he's penalizing himself. Again, had somebody had a win and a second place finish, I would say that whoever had a third result could have been 33rd. Being that Denny Hamlin didn't even start, they would have had to give the advantage to him. But straight up, the way the rule is, and I'm still kind of with you.
Briscoe had a 27th place finish. I'm sorry, 23rd place finish at Michigan, 7th place finish at Mexico City, and then first place finish at Pocono. So that's why Denny is the number 1 seed.
Now
Nobody
there,
else
Chris,
has one too.
right? There, Chris, I do maybe think they should have gone of an average over the 3 races. I would be able to argue on that side of it. However, again, the rules are what they are. Denny Hamlin got his win. I don't want to say took the day off, but he kind of did. Obviously, an important reason for the birth of his child, right? It wasn't that he was just skipping and he came back with a second place finish. So it wasn't like he was just coasting because he had nothing to run for. And you got to remember, this is an in-season challenge. This is separate from the championship. Any driver out there, yes, this is important. It's for $1 million, but another win would have given him more playoff points and everything else. It wasn't like it was just on a whim decision to skip a race. But had it gone by average over those 3 races, and like I said, I would make that argument
Hamlin would still be the number 1 seed, wouldn't he?
Probably. Well, it depends on what you do with that 3rd race. If you weren't there, to me, that's 36th or 37th, however you want to look at it, to factor into his 1st and 2nd place finish. I think just take Chase Briscoe's, for example. He's the number 2 seed, right? Do I have that right?
Yep.
Okay.
He's the number 2 seed.
So because he got a win, that puts him into the guaranteed top 3. If you were go to average, you said 1st, 7th, and 23rd, there are probably some drivers that had a better average over the 3 races than what Chase Briscoe, even though they didn't get a win. So, like I said, I would make an argument to use an average over those 3 versus best finish over the 3.
But the rules that NASCAR gave us were these rules, and so everybody has the same playing field.
Right.
Let's jump the table here. Let's kind of rework how we're gonna argue this. I think this one probably would structure our conversation a little bit better, if I may. Let's do your favorite matchup. Let's look on this list, and the 3 of us come up with our favorite matchup.
Well, that's what I was asking you. I asked you that question. So Jay said that his most compelling one was Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski. So what is it for you?
Yeah, with mine, I would. It's a toss up, right? You look down the line, you find William Byron, and he's with Ryan Preece right now. The RFK it seems to be one of the strongest organizations into this part of the stretch. So I would have to say that probably. And where is William Byron? William Byron is seated 18th and Ryan Preece 15th. Byron has been Mr. Consistent and consistently inconsistent all year long, which has found him in this spot. But as we've seen before, it doesn't take much for that team to right the ship and get headed in the right direction. But you look at the consistency that Ryan Preece has had, and I think that this one could, you're on the verge, maybe a 1 position, 2 position away from eliminating a superstar in this bracket. That's kind of like watching a Wake Forest go down to, a Southern Kentucky or something like that in the NCAA bracket. So that was probably the most intriguing for me, the Ryan Preece versus William Byron, because I really believe in this world that we're in right now, and being at Chicago road course or street course race. Ryan Preece
that's next round though.
Well, and I'm kind of intrigued. I'm kind of intrigued by a couple of them. The Ryan Blaney, Carson Hocevar one kind of bothers me, because keep in mind, you've got to beat your driver. So, and we know what can happen with Carson Hocevar when he gets all excited and wants he wants to advance. There's no doubt about that. And he's going against a driver that's very methodical and consistent and is able to make passes and work his way through the field. The other one is Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick. Kyle Larson is typically not that great on super speedways. And you've got Tyler Reddick, who is pretty good on the super speedways. So there's a good chance that Kyle Larson might not make it to the next round, which I think wow, here's a guy who's been doing great all season long, and he might not make it out of the first round. But
well, Sharon, you hit on two of the other ones. I had 5, 6 of them starred. That Keselowski, Busch being the top. You just hit on 2 of them. Here's a great one for you. Both of them are semi-solid at Atlanta, but if they can get into the road courses, you have number 11, Michael McDowell, against number 22, AJ Allmendinger. Both of them do decent at your super speedway. Just think, though, if one of them get into the 2 road courses that follow next, of where they could go into the deep into the tournament.
Yes, they're both great road course racers. Alex Bowman did well on the Chicago street race last year, and he's tied up with he's paired with Joey Logano. So that's if they get that far.
That one too. That was a matter of who does better at Atlanta. The other one that I looked at again of how deep could they go then is Bubba Wallace and Daniel Suarez.
That's my circle. Yep.
That one too.
Yeah,
and,
that was
and
interesting.
I also am curious about John Hunter Nemechek and Josh Berry. Ross Chastain and Eric Jones. I mean, there's so many great ones here that it's going to be fun.
Did either one of you fill out a full bracket already?
I've got my full bracket over here, but I have not filled it out yet.
All right. How about you,
really
Chris?
want to think about this.
I tried to, and I did. I come down. I believe it was William Byron and somebody else that I come down to the end with. But then it told me to put in an email address, and then I tried to use my NASCAR credentials to put it in, and it wouldn't accept that. So I don't know. I'll have to go back and redo it. Of course, I'll probably never get the same bracket.
We probably can't play.
I was going to say, especially if you're using an email that shows you're within the industry, you're probably ineligible. Yeah, at least on that site.
Chris.
You might be able to say on DraftKings or something.
Actually, come down to. Believe it or not, it's crazy. I don't know how that happened. When I seen Ty Gibbs at the end, I was like, "What am I thinking?" But that's how crazy it could be. I mean,
it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. There is no doubt about it.
Chris, I got Gibbs in my final 4, if you will. I got Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez, but that Suarez one could screw me from the beginning. Blaney, Suarez, Chase Elliott, and Ty Gibbs are my 4 to get down to it.
That's crazy. So
interesting.
I mean, he must have played Ty Gibbs the way I did.
Who are your 4, Chris?
I remember the last 2. I don't remember the last 4. Like I said, I got down to the end, and it was Ty Gibbs versus William Byron. And I was like, well, wait a minute. How did Ty get there? Like, seriously. So obviously, it must not have been like the other 2. I don't know. Like, I'd have to go back and redo it. I really don't know how I picked it the first time. But,
well, I'll tell you what. Maybe we can all fill it out for next week.
At the end, I think that says a lot about how this bracket could actually work out. Because I claim to be an intelligent piece of mind here in the NASCAR community.
You are an intelligent piece of mind in this NASCAR community.
See, I have Chase Briscoe knocking Byron out when we get to the road course racing.
Wow. There you go.
Well, that's it. Are they paired up? Did you compare it with the bracket?
Briscoe would beat Gregson this week at Atlanta. Byron would beat Priest, so they'd go head to head, but that goes to the Chicago street course, and that's where I have Briscoe moving on.
Okay. Well, it's going to be interesting, I will say this. And I expect there to be some shockers along the way.
And that's what I said. I didn't do any kind of statistic study, and it was after you and I came off the air, Sharon. I just scribbled them down and real quickly as kind of a gut instinct. I didn't do any research on the tracks or their statistics. So mine may be way off, but it'll be just interesting to even look at how one changes the rest of everything, especially, like I said, you look at McDowell or Allmendinger. If they get into the road course races, they could be in that Final Four. Looking
I
at
think
Dover
it's
and
gonna have
Indy.
to be a combination of instinct and statistics, because the statistics can sometimes steer you down the wrong path. Because there might be some little element that's a little bit different. The Gen 7 car could be a big difference in what the stats are telling you versus what's happened more recently.
It certainly could be. And like I said, even through this first round, we just talked about some good matchups. Once you get into that second round, and I mean, I'm looking at what I think they're going to be or have them marked down, but even just changing one of them, should somebody else get by or through the first round. You mentioned it, Carson Hocevar of that. Chris Buescher is another one that I said of just consistent week in and week out. We know he's a good road course racer. I was trying to find who I had him knocking him out at Atlanta. Because he was, I had him, I actually had him deep. I had him, Ty Gibbs, beating him on the Sonoma road course. That one's a tough one. If again, I go with if. Let me say that, very much so if. As I have it, Ty Gibbs and Chris Buescher on a road course, and I gave the advantage to Gibbs just because I feel like this might be something where he excels.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting, because what we cannot predict is where are the parts failures going to come in.
I was just thinking that'll be a huge factor. We said we want to see it, and we're going to see it here, and it's going to mess up our brackets.
It's going to happen right here in this in-season challenge, and it's going to mess up everybody's bracket. So that's the unforeseeable. That, imagine Denny Hamlin blowing an engine.
Well, it's ironic, Sharon. What you got, Chris?
The big one at Atlanta. I mean, it
right?
Would be in close quarter racing. We could destroy a bunch of cars real quick. Chicago street course. There's there's no you can't exceed track limitations there, so the track's real tight, which creates a harder course to race, which creates more wrecks. The one thing that we turns into a snooze fest with a lot of these road course races is drivers can exceed the track limits and they can spin out and get into the gravel or whatever, and they're fine. But a Chicago street course, it's going to be less forgiving. You're going to hit that wall and you're going to close the track off because it's just narrow, it's tight, and you got to be on your game. So there's a lot of components that can go in the first two rounds here of this basically elimination type style race. It kind of reminds me of black flag racing. Have you guys ever heard of black flag racing?
What's black flag racing?
Black flag racing is basically every lap that you go, you drop the tail end off. So every lap that you go around the racetrack, you drop the last car off. The last car has to leave the racetrack. And then it leaves the last man standing. So the black flag comes from your last, you get the black flag, you leave. And at the end of the race, it's the last man standing. This is as close to that as what we've ever seen in NASCAR.
That's kind of funny when Dave Moody has on Fridays Crazy Wild Idea Day, and they've talked about that of black flagging or whatever the last car. He goes into a rant about having a sniper on the roof and shooting the last place's tire. It's pretty funny. I've heard him do it a couple of times, but yeah. And I have seen that at your local tracks. So you talk about kind of like the promoter's caution, a gimmick thing that just for an event or something they do. I have heard of that now that you say it.
It sounds like it would be interesting.
My last question to y'all, will this play into strategy for the racers? I think I've asked that last week with Karen on. And Jay, you're here. We got to talk about it last week. Jay, what do you think that this is going to play in to crew chief strategies? Do you think, we've got the bigger picture of the end of the year, the end of the regular season. How is this going to play into what drivers do and what they decide? Are crew chiefs going to make this relevant? Are they going to play into it? Or is it just one of those let it fall and see how it happens?
From what I've heard from drivers and crew chiefs alike, it'll pretty much be that they're aware of it. I don't think it'll be a strategy as far as how they run or call the race. If you're in a position of, you don't have a winning car, then it may come into play more so of, hey, where is our one-on-one head-to-head competitor? And I say this, several of the crew chiefs got asked this, several of the drivers. From what I heard, like I said, they will be aware of it, but it's not going to be their sole determining factor each race, because again, it is about the championship, not this in-season tournament. More of an awareness, and like I said, of maybe towards the end, you're running, say, 5th or 6th. You know you can't catch the leader. Whoever it is has a dominant car. You're not going to touch them. That you might then shift your focus a little more so towards, can we win our head-to-head matchup type deal. But I don't see any strategy call. Maybe for some of your backmarker teams that aren't in a position to even have a shot of a top 10 finisher, like I said, theirs might be a little bit different of, hey, can we flip the stage, get track position on our head-to-head competitor versus the race? Because we know we really don't have a shot at the race. But like I said, I think that would depend on circumstances of where they're at for that particular race and the season-long championship first and foremost. So, like I said, I think they will talk about it and reference it. You may hear drivers get told, hey, your head-to-head guy, however you want to call it, is here, you're going to advance. But I don't think it's going to be the primary focus by any means. Excuse me. I think it would be a mistake too, because again, for this in-season tournament, is it worth risking your overall championship shot?
No.
Exactly.
And one thing that I've been surprised at is how little they've talked about it on TV. The 3 races for the seeding, they've talked very, very little about this in-season challenge and the fact that these previous 3 races were all about seeding for the in-season challenge. I think we've talked about it a great deal more than anybody else. And I'm that's an exaggeration, obviously, but I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this. So I think that is kind of interesting in and of itself. And I thought about it from a crew chief's perspective. And I do think that the crew chiefs, not that I'm a crew chief or anything, or I know how crew chiefs think, but I do think that crew chiefs are going to be focused on getting their driver the best finish they can get anyway. And to them, this is just something peripheral that's happening. And unless it's, you're behind your head-to-head guy, they're probably not even going to mention it on the radio. So
Sharon, I just want you to know I was not laughing at you. And just so coincidentally, TNT Dale Jr. just had a commercial on TV that, as you were saying that, had a commercial for TNT and the in-season championship and whatnot going on. That's why I was laughing.
That nobody's talking about it.
Right, yeah. I was like, well, somebody is.
Well, in that particular moment that I was saying it, yes. But leading up to this race, I don't think a lot of people have been talking about it. But Chris, what are your thoughts?
Well, in the words of the great Herm Reynolds, Herman Edwards, you play to win the game. You play to win the game. And so I think that those strategies will go together. Maybe the first 2 outings we may not see crew chiefs playing into the strategy, but I believe as we go into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we'll have to remember that there is $1 million on the line. And some of these guys are going to be making hand-to-hand, head-to-head combat. When they line up on the track, they're going to be 1 and 2 or 4 and 6. You're going to see these guys close together, and I believe that will play into the cause. So I do believe that crew chiefs are going to strategize. This is going to give them another wrinkle. Look, when you're an engineer, you're a stats guy. You believe in algorithms. You believe in stats. You play into those chords. How do we think for right now? Of course, everybody's being quiet because they're not trying to show their hand. It's the perfect poker face. Oh, we're not really worried about it. Oh, we'll just see how it goes when we get there. I guarantee you there are certain crew chiefs that have circled this on their board and said, look, we're going to try. We're going to see how far we get. But when it comes crunch time and our drivers there, we will play into the strategy to figure out how to beat the guy that we're up against in order to get to that $1 million. Because why wouldn't you? Jim Mora, playoffs? You're talking about playoffs? Yeah, those guys. There's some guys that are already set for that, so they'll be able to freely play this game a little bit better than others. Then you got the back marker teams who can play into the strategies. With just the first 2 tracks, we've already said how diverse those tracks are and how things can happen really, really fast. We may see several superstars eliminated in the very first round, or we could see that the superstars rise above all and go all the way to the end. Do I think that Denny Hamlin's probably the favorite at this? The way that he's run for the last several weeks leading up to this, absolutely. Is Chicago street course going to be a hinder in his behalf? He'll tell you first, he's not very good at road course racing. So there you go. The number 1 seed could very well go down depending on who he's up against in the second race of this format. And, it's anybody's game then. So the first thing we're going to do is keep our eye on the top 5 drivers that are consistently in the mix right now. And that would be a William Byron, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and
Chase Elliott.
Yeah, Chase. Well, maybe Chase Elliott. Maybe it's Chase Briscoe.
He's 5th. Chase Elliott is 5th in points.
Well, Chase Briscoe's been on a heck of a run right now.
5 seeds here, though. You got Denny Hamlin's number 1. Christopher Bell is number 4.
Busher is
Number
3.
5
Busher is the one I said could be, yeah.
Number
3 is Chris Busher.
Right.
So
and that would be a confidence booster for RFK to get deep into that round. RFK right now needs some confidence boosters, and how far they're able to get their guys into this in-season playoff strategy would really help, especially when you're, an organization like them that really needs good runs to sell next year's sponsorships.
I'll tell you what, Chris, you made some great points of saying that maybe teams wouldn't be focused on it like I thought they would. And we'll take Denny Hamlin, already has 3 victories, a good amount of playoff points built up. So, yeah, I mean, winning more races and getting more playoff points would be, but they might be able to focus a little bit more on just the head-to-head for the $1 million. Then on the other end, though, you mentioned, and I hate to pick anybody particular out, but I'm going to use Justin Haley. Barring 1 or 2 tracks of good runs, yeah, they're not a top even 5 contending team. So their strategy may be specifically, what can we do to outmaneuver or beat our head-to-head just for this week? And look at that each and every week. Because they haven't been. And I'll throw Noah Gragson, the season he's been having. Unfortunately, he's got to go against Chase Briscoe right off the get-go. But Sharon, I would have to agree with you. And from one aspect, when you're talking about the broadcasters on TV, I get that maybe they haven't, because it's not about that race itself. It's the conglomeration and where they're going to be. This is really more so for the fans. Obviously, the $1 million is for the driver or team, whoever gets it. But this is more of a fan interaction. And I'm with you. I think they should have done more for it. But just because they're not talking about it, I guarantee you the fans are, as far as watching it and being involved in it. We'll have to see if, now that it is here over these 5 TNT races, if there is more of a focus. I am 100% with you. Those 3 races leading into it on Prime, I'd have been talking about it each and every opportunity I got, but that's because I'm excited about it as a fan. So I don't know, but I think they could have done more with the exposure of it. Yes. Aside from Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s commercial.
I haven't seen his commercial, so I have to watch for that. I love the one where they're racing on the racetrack and saying, "Come on, we're going to be on Prime Video."
And that, I think there's been I think there's been a different one for each and every week. So yeah. Again, I'm sure again that executives at that level had their thought process of, and I don't get paid to think for them, so we'll leave it at that.
Well, I thought they just did a great job, except for this, except for not
Right.
talking about the in-season challenge. So, Chris, anything more you want to say on the in-season challenge?
No, I mean, it's just a way to get people engaged, and we'll have something, some content to talk about the next several weeks as we head into the final stretch of the regular season. This may not have any significant comparison to what we're going to have in the playoffs. There again, we may be looking at the future structure of the playoffs as NASCAR really tries to decide. The most concerning poll that I've seen, and it's connected to this, is Jeff Gluck made the poll of, do you want to see the 32? Do you want to see the current playoff system versus the new playoff system versus the old 36 race format? And unfortunately, only like 8 to 10% of us actually claim that the current playoff system is legit and fine. So maybe we see something like this played into the strategy.
What was the high choice then for the way to fix it? And I've heard these discussions before. I know there's
the 36 races. It's so
boy.
It's so new. It's so no. Like, do we not remember Terry Labonte?
Yeah,
exactly.
Do we not remember Matt Kenseth winning a championship? I mean, no. There's a reason why we got rid of that.
People have no idea.
I know they go back to.
That's right.
They go back to Dale Earnhardt a lot. I go back to Jeff Gordon, and I was a Jeff Gordon fan. Seeing him have all but the championship, and here again, I got to go with Dave Moody. Who goes to the final 2 races excited that Jimmy Johnson is who he liked to use, only has to finish 23rd or better to win this championship over the last 3 races or 4 races?
Nobody.
Exactly. And that's where, Sharon, you know this, you've been around long enough. The fans are so fickle. They didn't like that. They wanted, they rebelled when Kenseth won it by only winning, 1 or 2 races, and Terry Labonte, and then yet want to go back to it. And that's where I get frustrated with fans. I really do, as a mass group. I think I do think there could be some tweaks. I don't know if I'd be in favor of doing this, of a head-to-head eliminate every week, whoever your heads up against. I get it for the basketball tournament. That's how they do their championship. I'm in favor of you get your final 4, but it's with 3 races. I'm not a big component of the 1 race deal because, again, if you have a parts failure, a wreck that's not of your doing, you're out. At least over, say, 3 races, it's a variety of tracks. You got your average, like we were talking about. It's consistent over at least 3 races.
Well, the 4 options, just so you know, on the Jeff Gluck poll was the current format, the 10-race chase. We used to call it the chase.
Yep.
And I do like the chase. I thought that was a good name. All 36 races or an other modified playoff. So you would fall into the other modified playoff.
That or the chase. No, that or the chase. And we saw some great ones with that. Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards. Somebody won 5 of them and still was in a tie. So that to me would be closest. I say cut it down to 3. Get your 4 drivers, then do it over 3 races. So, yeah, I guess it would be the other category, but the chase would probably be my first. Like I said, I think of Christopher Bell going into Phoenix has a problem. I mean, he's got no shot at it because of a parts failure. And I get that's part of racing, but you're talking about the championship all on 1 race. And if you're talking stick and ball sports, I get it. The Super Bowl is one game. Again, you throw an interception in that 1 game, it could cost you. I get that. And that's why I'm not opposed to it. I'm not rebelling that, hey, we have to change it. But if I were to have the option, I would give it an average over about 3 races.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I shared earlier this week, Mark Martin's idea that he thinks that this is not real racing and it's damaging to the sport, in reference back to the 92 race with Bill Elliott, Alan Kwiecki, and he left out Davey Allison, which I'm not sure why he left out Davey Allison. That kind of upset me. that he did do that. And then it reminds me that that's why we have the format that we have, because it gives you the final race with 4 contenders who are battling for that championship. And I really, as you said, Jay, I think I could be okay with a 3-race effort at the end, or maybe a 2-race effort, maybe 4-race effort, something like that. But at the same time, this is why we created this that we did. And the chase format, the original format, seems to be the most likely that was probably the better format suited for this style of racing, by the idea of the fans, because anybody that's voting for a 36 race champion obviously has no idea what it's like to watch a guy run 5th all year long and somehow be the champion at the end of the day.
Well,
so
and he's so far ahead that all he has to do is show up at home at the final race of the year.
There again, it was pretty much Jimmy Johnson that ruined the 10 race, because there were a couple years, even in the 10 race, that he had a pretty solid lead going into that final race or two. Not quite as bad as what we had seen under the full 36. And it's ironic. You bring
tracks, right? Think about the tracks
and that was part of it. And I was a big component of that, especially what we're seeing now with rotating the championship venue. That's why I've been so in favor of that, because that does mix it up. The one thing you brought up, Chris, that battle between Bill Elliott, Alan Kowicki, and Davey Allison. Here's my argument to that. That is 1 year out of, and we'll go with the modern era just because I know when that started, of 1972 up until we started this chase format. You had 1 or 2, yeah, exactly. 1 or 2 of those battles. Other than that, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, they were all pretty much coasting the last 5 to 6 races.
Yep.
Right. So Mark Martin sounds like a get off my lawn guy right now, I believe is what I shared in the private chats, because it's obvious that's what NASCAR is trying to replicate, is that 92, that 1 year where we actually had a great championship finish. And this is probably, this or the chase factor is the only two that can most likely give us this type of scenario. And as you said, you go look at the tracks that Jimmy Johnson had to win at: Martinsville, it was Charlotte, it was Talladega. All these tracks were favored for Jimmy Johnson at that period of time. So no wonder he ran off with the championship like he did. But the one thing to his credit was, each time that he won one of those championships, NASCAR went in and made another tweak to, they tried to tweak the system to get him out, to buck him out, and he would find another way. Give it to Chad Knaus, the master at figuring out strategy. So and there again though, because he's not exactly your top super speedway rider, he was one of those that would ride towards the back and try and stay out of trouble, and then just try and get the best finish at the end, and that played into that whole thing too.
Yeah, that frustrated me, because again, if you're a Jimmy Johnson fan and you want to watch the race and all you're doing is watching your driver clock laps throughout most, 75 or probably 90% of the race, and show up for the last 10% of the race, that's a lot of money to spend to watch your driver just clock laps.
Right.
So yeah, I think the playoff system or the chase system is so much better than what we had before.
I know he was kind of oh, go ahead, Chris.
Move the championship race around to different tracks, and we'll have a real play in the strategy on how and who, because certain drivers are favored at Phoenix, right? Certain drivers would be favored at Homestead. Certain drivers would be favored at a Nashville type racetrack or a St. Louis type racetrack. All these are tracks that we've discussed here before that could be viable for a championship race. Hey, finish it at Charlotte, man. Finish it at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're seeing some great racing in Charlotte, and they have good weather in the late months of October and November. The Dirt Racing World Classic, I think, is out there in the end of October. So, that's a good venue, man.
I know that's one that kind of got. What's that, Sharon?
I said, and it's at home.
Right, and that's what I know that kind of played into that. initially I would have thought that was out of the realm of possibilities, but they do have decent weather. I mean, we're always going to have that issue. As Chris mentioned, they have the Dirt Track World Championship up there in that same time frame of October into maybe November. So it is viable. And especially, I know that was kind of the knee-jerk reaction after the Coke 600 because that too was, get rid of the Roval, go back to 2 oval tracks out Charlotte. You got to be careful about that. That's all I'll say. That knee-jerk, one race, react, make it the championship race. We heard that from several venues of, this should be the championship race. This should be the championship race.
Well, yeah,
it's changed 5 weeks in a row.
Yeah, do you take one of the other races away? Because they do 2 races already in a year, right?
Well, and I do think with the road course, number of road course races we have, I do believe the Roval may go away. I know that was another topic for a while of, do we go back to 2 actual oval track races? Roval was great, and Sharon, I was with you. They said they were going to do it, and I said, what on earth are you possibly thinking with this? Not going to work. It's going to be a disaster. There were some disastrous moments in it, but overall, it turned out to be real good. I'd eat a little bit of that crow, put some salt on it and eat a little bit of that. But it did come out real good. It's very entertaining. But has it run its course as a road course, Roval road course? We've seen that fad. We saw it at Indy. The Indies went away. They're back on the big track. So I think Charlotte one might be the same case.
Yep. Okay. I don't have anything more to say. I was up at 5 o'clock this morning and I'm tired.
Well, I got a question here. There were 2, and I think they kind of tie together, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I was kind of on vacation and had some other things on my mind, but we got Carson Hocevar, who was fined by the team, and Tab Boyd fired as a spotter.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, they both referenced speaking badly about being in Mexico. Is that correct?
That is correct. I guess.
I know they weren't quite the same, but that's what
different with Tab Boyd is that he was involved in some kind of, somebody scammed him or stole some money or something.
Right. I don't remember what the exact incident was he referenced.
Yeah, and it left a bad taste in his mouth.
Here's my problem with this.
After, not before. Go ahead.
Right, and I understand Carson Hocevar's was maybe a little bit prior to and not having knowledge, and he admitted that, and I get that. However, here's my partial issue with it. I understand a business, you're representative of the sport, of a team, and trying to promote something going on there. However, what happened to freedom of speech? I mean, again,
there's freedom of speech, but there's consequences for what
right. Right.
When you go to your workplace, you sign a waiver for things like this. And you sign agreements with your workplace that you're not going to say disparaging things.
And you represent the company. I know. I work for a Fan for Racing. I've been told I got to watch what I say. No, I'm just kidding. So
I didn't sign anything though.
Right. No, I mean, I get that. I understand that. And I understand, especially with Carson Hocevar, and he did come back and acknowledge it, that he didn't have the knowledge. And there's good and bad, whether it be in our country. And I say this, having been military, I've been in about 8 different countries. There are things I didn't like. There are things I did like. The fact that they expressed their opinion on something. And like I said, I get where the company and whatnot are coming from of, hey, you're representing our brand. We're trying to develop something down here. But if you're Tab Boyd and actually had something happen to you, yeah, I mean, I understand where he's coming from. Hey, I got robbed. Now, does that make it bad against that particular country or city? Could have happened in Chicago, Philadelphia. I mean, honestly.
It happened anywhere.
Now, here's where I have the issue. Had he gotten jacked at the hotel, and if I'm mistaken, I apologize. I thought it had something to do with getting jacked at the hotel or in the area of the hotel. Had that happened in Chicago and he made that same post on X, formerly known as Twitter, would he have gotten let go from the team, fired by the team for saying that about it happening in Chicago? I don't think so. That's where I have the problem.
Okay, Chris, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so, sometimes it's whose mouth it comes out of, right? Stephen A. Smith just the same week said that players were fearful to go to Memphis because of the environment that's around the area. Basically, Tad Boyd said the same thing. Like, this is not a safe place to go. I got ripped off trying to trade some American money for some pesos, and he was very upset about it. I don't think that there was a reason for firing. I think that Hyak went to the extreme, but you kind of have to wonder if maybe it was something that kind of led up to it. Maybe this was the straw that broke the camel's back. We are talking about a spotter who was with with William Byron. He was a Hendrick Motorsports spotter at one time. And typically, you only get pushed down the line when it's one, either the end of your career, or two, you start to create a bad attitude and a bad atmosphere. And that may be some behind-the-scenes stuff, speculating that could be more to the story than just that particular incident. But it does come off the realm of Carson Hocevar and the comments that he made. And I've seen in the industry, not just our industry, but other industries as well, where once a precedent has been set, then others fear of the backlash if they don't follow through with something. And Tad was obviously an expendable figure, and they took that as the reason to get rid of him, because if he's an inexpendable figure, I don't really see his comments too far out of the basis of reality. Now, whether or not it was okay for him to share reality, I think that's what gets us in a lot of trouble with X and Twitter and social media and all, is we'll say things at times and think that it's okay, that we're just speaking our mind, and we don't realize the implications of those particular social media posts or tweets or whatever it may be. Carson Hocevar was speaking from the heart, which is something that I think that a lot of us fans particularly grow to. I want somebody to be truthful. I want a man's man. I want a conversation that keeps things real and on the basis of opinion. I'm not going to judge you for your opinion, but he has bosses to answer to, and those bosses said, "Hey, we've got a sponsor on the side of this car that's sponsoring this car because they wanted to be in the Mexico City region, and they wanted to be noticed there." And so taking these words and is kind of it's not beneficial for everybody on the team to look at that sponsor and say, "Hey, our guy just kind of threw y'all up underneath the bus about the environment here in Mexico City." So I really think that Tad Boyd got fired because of reactionary causes. This is not the first time. I think last year an Xfinity Series team guy got fired for some similar reason of just saying something at the wrong place at the wrong time. So it's unfortunate. Tad Boyd will probably rebound. He'll still find himself somewhere in the series. But when you look at these guys' careers and they start slipping on down the line from being in a top-notch team to one of these secondary or third-tier teams, obviously they've worn out their welcome in the best race shops in NASCAR. So there's a reason why Tad Boyd was a spotter for Ricky Stenhouse at Hyak Racing and no longer William Byron. I do want to make that point clear.
Yeah, I think that Tad Boyd is a victim of the circumstances, and you alluded to it, Chris, when you were speaking, in that his was more of a personal situation that actually did happen to him. Carson Hocevar was kind of talking about how he was hearing all of these things and kind of basing his judgment based on things he was hearing and not his own personal experience. Tad Boyd was talking about his own personal experience, but because Carson was penalized and because NASCAR has this thing about, not disparaging the sport and everything, and I understand that, a lot of businesses have that, then you find yourself in a predicament of what do we do? Because if we don't do something, we're going to get backlashed. and which backlash is going to be better. They're getting backlash for doing it, for firing him, but I think they feared the other backlash more, and so that's why they did it. I think they knew going into it that people were going to be upset about it because he's well liked, I think, within the sport, and so people were upset to lose him. But I think he's a victim of the circumstances. They were kind of in a corner. They had to do something, and that's what they did. Now, they could have done what Spire Motorsports did, which is to find him. And I'm wondering why they didn't do more of a monetary fine versus outright firing of him. And I don't know if NASCAR was consulted before they decided what they were going to do, or if it was an independent decision. I don't know. So there's a little bit of unknowns here too, from our perspective. Go ahead, Chris.
Well,
yeah, I just want to add to this that, you know, we're in a situation with spotters who've had a specific show called Door Bumper Clear, and they have said things over the last couple of years that has literally gotten the entire show fired, except for one particular person, Freddie Kraft. And so, you know, obviously, spotters did have a voice there for a little while, but the likes of Brett Griffin and TJ Majors probably kind of canceled that for the rest of them. I did read something that he and Brett Griffin are starting a podcast called Door Bumper Canceled. So we'll be looking forward to that the next podcast by Brett Griffin.
so
Because
here's
not fireable by anybody. He is not. He literally sealed the coffin.
And he's still spotted over the weekend. I don't know if you guys know it, but he was a spotter in the Truck Series and in the Xfinity Series. I think it was Ryan Ellis in the Xfinity Series, and I forget who it was in the Truck Series. I was trying to find it, but he did spot over the weekend in the other two series.
So here's the thing with that, and I'm glad Chris brought that up. And I understand that might have been, Chris, you kind of alluded to it. It is speculation. Tab Boyd is one that, if you follow on X or Twitter, generally has an opinion, but by no means of that of Freddie Kraft. If I were to look at it and have fired somebody, it would have been Freddie Kraft, if he's not representing and being politically correct at all times. But that goes back to, though, and I just compare the two, Tab Boyd and Carson Hocevar. Tab Boyd's was realistic. It happened to him. He experienced it. To me, that is more excusable than Carson Hocevar saying, "Oh, this is what I've heard and an image I have prior to going." You know, so that's where I really have an issue with of Tab Boyd being fired. Now, has he said and done some other things that like you said, the straw that broke the camel's back? We've had enough of this. But then my question would be, where's Freddie Kraft on that list, and why does he have so much leeway? Because some of his, I don't even bother to read, because I'm like, man, that's just outrageously over the line, in my opinion. Okay. Right. But my ultimate question stands. Had this race been of the one of three that they did, we don't know that officially yet, but 3 races in Chicago, had he said it about Chicago, would there be the same repercussions? And that's where I have a major issue. Exactly.
A lot of people did say it about Chicago. They were
exactly
of going to Chicago. But
so why is it okay? Why is it okay to be fearful of Chicago or Philadelphia, but not Mexico?
Well, and I never understood their fear of Chicago. I know I was so happy when I heard Larry McReynolds talk about taking the L train to and from his hotel to the track, because I did the same thing. You know, I rode the L train. I never had any issues. I walked the streets of Chicago. I used to work in Chicago, and it's a really great city. And so people are always worried about what's going to happen to them. And I think people sometimes, if you don't live there, you have these visions of people walking around with shotguns and just shooting people everywhere. Well, that's not my experience. I've never had that experience. Now, I will say I have had some experiences because of the job that I had, where I was in some places I probably shouldn't have been, and there were things that happened. But as a general rule, if you're in the main drag of Chicago, those things aren't going to happen to you.
Are you gonna jump in here, Chris? Are you gonna jump in here?
Yeah, y'all know I've got a couple of notes already. First of all, I'm from the John Rocker comments, the Atlanta Brave closer that had a lot of bad things to say about New York.
That was John Smoltz.
No, it was John Rocker. John Rocker.
Oh, was it Rocker? I thought that. Okay, yeah. Yep.
Talked about taking the train, and I can't get into anything else that he said,
right,
because in this day and age, that would literally get you shipped off to another planet, not just fired or let go. So, Tad Boyd had basically his John Rocker moment. But before we end, I do want to say that Richard Petty was not very keen on this race. He did not believe that we would end up going back there. He did not bring anything negative to the table, but he basically, other than road course racing is not NASCAR racing. That was kind of funny that he said that. But he was pretty assured that we were not going to return back to Mexico City next season. So obviously there was a bad taste left in a lot of people's mouths. We kept hearing about the sickness. That's a real thing. Me and Miss Sharon talked about it
Montezuma's revenge.
Yes. So I think all in all, most of the people got the memo. Keep your mouth shut. But yeah, when you have to have armed escorts into the places that you're going, that's not what these drivers are typically used to. Remember, we're a NASCAR group. Our drivers go and hang out at Talladega Boulevard. They go, Brad Keselowski goes out into the campgrounds and gives away free merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that they had that type of atmosphere in Mexico City, which is really a culture shock for our guys. They got to see what Formula One has to go through, because Formula One is raced in big cities. It is raced in downtown arenas and whatnot. And so, you don't drive your motor coach into Monaco when you're in the F1 league. So our guys got to see a little bit of what it is to international race. I'm not sure that most of them were very comfortable with it. And I'm sure NASCAR executives will take that into account of all of the from the issues that they had of getting people down there to security issues and whatnot. And in the end, Tad Boyd will hopefully be justified, because it's not just in Mexico City where somebody can rip you off. I know several instances of some backpacks and stuff being stolen in California. And whatnot. So anytime that we go anywhere near these inner cities, there's always the chance that things will happen that don't typically happen in the suburbs. And I'll just leave it at that. Or I get fired.
But no, yeah, right. It would be like the last show here on Fan for Racing. No, here's where, and Chris, I thought you were actually going to get to it of where I was going to go. Sharon, you said of that Chicago getting a bad rap. No, I think there is a percentage of it that is. It is a big city, whatever it be. However, Chris, have things gone missing at, let's say, Why Not Motorsports Park around Meridian, Mississippi?
How about? We had a four-wheeler stolen a few years ago.
That's the one I was thinking about. I remember helping look for the four-wheeler. Jackson, Mississippi, I believe, is ranked as one of the top as far as murder rates. Okay. I have areas of Columbus, Mississippi I will not go into. So that's true everywhere you go. And that's why I have the problem. And Sharon, you kind of said it. Had it been said about Chicago, it might have gotten some news or, whatever, but he wouldn't have been fired over it. That's why I have the problem, is just the fact that it is Mexico City international event. It's one of those, if the rule is the rule, you can't say nothing bad about wherever we're going. Agree with the rule or not, you got to abide by it. But the rule isn't consistent, and that's where I have the issue.
And I definitely don't believe Carson Hocevar should be in anywhere comparison to derogatory comments said by Kyle Larson. I've seen a lot of comparison to that.
Wow.
and Larry McReynolds were both trying to basically say Carson Hocevar's job should be in jeopardy because of his comments that he had. I think all that is extreme. Look, we know eventually these guys get corporatized. They have to put the suit on. They have to wear, because that's how we expand the sport. We don't expand the sport in criticism of other cultures and stuff like that. So this is a learning experience for Carson. Carson's name keeps popping up. I think that's funny that he said that in Pennsylvania, that he's kind of been in the news a lot here lately. And that's really, once we get out of the negative stuff, that's really good because Carson's being talked about. And there's a lot of emphasis being put on Carson Hocevar's career right now. And so he's really headed in the right direction. We all make mistakes. I was doing a fire department training this past Tuesday and learning how to turn on the pumps on the fire truck. And I made a detrimental error. I was told to go shut off the pump. And I did not take the fire engine out of drive and put it into neutral, which idolizes the pump, right? And I shut it off, and it made the most god-awful noise you would ever hear. And somebody looked real dumb and stupid. So we learn from those mistakes, and we build from them, and we try our best to improve them as things move on. So that's his mistake, and if that's the worst mistake that he made, so be it. It's definitely not a Kyle Larson type of moment, and we shouldn't compare either of those.
And I did like that they also took that $50,000 fine and donated it to 3 different organizations. I thought that was a good thing too. I think that Tab Boyce was probably a little bit extreme, but it's up to each organization, and that's what that organization decided that they were going to do. And it seems like NASCAR left it in the hand of the teams versus taking action themselves, which I thought was interesting too.
Very interesting. Almost like
you've mentioned that a couple of times. I do think that NASCAR was involved in the situation with Carson Hocevar, and they just agreed with what the team did. Right. They said they were okay with that, and they would take no further action. So they were apparently looking at it. But there again, I think they're giving him the opportunity. The fine was there. The cultural sensitivity training, I believe, is how they referred to it. And there again, honestly, and I'm one of them, having been in multiple countries, we should probably all go through, all right, just to be more aware and knowledgeable on it. Because there are certain aspects where we're not knowledgeable when it comes to different things. And I'll just leave it at that. I did think the firing was a little excessive, but I can't say that there wasn't more reason than that, as has kind of been discussed. Maybe this was that, hey, we've talked to you a couple times, we're done talking to you.
Right.
Let's get Miss Sharon out of here. She's yawning, man, getting me.
I am really.
Yeah, she's struggling over here. So I've had a great time tonight. A lot of cool topics. You can find me at Flag of Caution, Yellow Caution Flag, on Facebook, also on Twitter, on TikTok, and as well as Instagram. We are off this weekend coming up, but in 2 weeks we have a big show. It's the inaugural Firecracker 50. It is a factory stock Super Series sanctioned event. I think that we made a mistake earlier, and we said that we would be qualifying. The factory stock Super Series does not qualify. They will be based off of passing points, so heat racing only. They'll draw and heat race only, but we have a full show planned for Friday and Saturday night with all the other classes. Be there, all right? Why not Motorsports Park? Why not Mississippi? Check it out on Facebook. Just be there. That's what I'm talking about. Jay, be there.
Yeah, that's too, man, I have a tough time. Yeah, I know.
I can't pay you, but come help me.
I have, right. Hey, right. I've been down there before. It's not, I would love to get down there. I don't know that I've been down there yet this year. So I don't think we're racing because we got this weekend coming up. There's a hurricane coming through Mississippi, the Hurricane Area Super Sprints. Yeah, it's the Hurricane Area Super Sprints. They were at Why Not a couple of weeks ago. So looking forward to that. We came off a great night with the Mississippi State Championship Challenge Series Super Late Models. So things are like, what's that?
That's the USCS Sprint Car Series. Please do not let people out and hear you say that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the ASCS with the hurricane area super sprints.
Okay.
But so I will be busy again this weekend, hopefully, again, weather permitting. I know Chris mentioned that. We got a lot of weather issues in the area at all times. So looking forward to it, and hopefully, yeah, get down to see Chris in person.
We've had heat advisories up here telling everybody, warning against heat exhaustion and what to do if you get it. It's the heat index that's getting up over 100. That's really causing us a little bit of problems. I got my air conditioners in just in time to not have to deal with all of that heat. But I'm Fan for Racing site on Twitter, Fan for Racing blog and radio on Facebook, as well as our website, fanforracing.com. And I will be at home watching the races. I enjoy watching my races with my brother, and we will be taking those in this weekend. I love that we've got another triple header with Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, as well as another ARCA race at Lime Rock Park. Can't wait for the Lime Rock Park races. That's going to be the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series at Lime Rock Park.
Another East Coast race.
Yep, it is. Okay, so with that, we did do an interview with Trevor Huddleston tonight. That will be out sometime in the morning. I got all of the reviews edited and ready to go. Two of them went out tonight. The third one went out, but I did not post it on social media. I'll post that in the morning, and then we'll get the Cup Series out in the morning as well. So just a lot to do and so little time to get it all done between the recordings and getting them published tonight. So we will get the Cup Series out. It'll be out tomorrow morning, though, along with the interview with Trevor Huddleston from the ARCA West Series. He gave us a really nice interview. So looking forward to getting that posted as well.
Well, I know what hours you put into it, Sharon. We appreciate that, as well as giving us this platform to be able to express our opinions and not get fired.
Can we make some picks? Can we make some picks before we leave?
Oh, yeah. What kind of picks do you want to make?
Well, I want to pick Ryan Preece to win the race.
Oh, to win his head-to-head?
To win the race.
Oh, to win the race. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a bold one. I think he's come so close. I would have to go with, I know you mentioned this of Roush Fenway Keselowski. Of that group right now, I got to look at Chris Buescher. He was involved in that three-way battle, as it were. So if I were picking a Roush Fenway, it would be Chris Buescher. However, and I got Blaney, I think, going all the way. So it'd be between that. I do think it's a Ford. I'll go with that.
Yeah, well, I always pick Ryan Blaney. I think Ryan Blaney's good at just about any track you put him on. And so I think but if I'm picking a Keselowski's driver, since you took Buescher and you took Preece, I'll take Keselowski.
Brad's been there. Yeah. There we go. We got Roush Fenway covered. Yeah.
We got Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing covered with each of us picking one of those drivers. But Ryan Blaney's my first pick.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. That was if it wasn't one of the Roush Fenway, but we'll have to remember that next week of it's head to head to head. All out of Roush Fenway.
Well, we Jay, you and I can have our picks for the 1-to-1 challenge at our preview shows.
I know I didn't track it this year, but I really think I'm coming out way behind on that this year. It's a good thing we weren't tracking it this year because I think I've been horrible at it.
Well, and I've probably been good, and I don't even get credit for it. But anyway.
Right.
I really appreciate you guys and our Hot Topic Sound Off and all of our opinions and our passion for the sport. I had somebody this week, I did the reviews I did by myself. Was it the reviews? I forget now, but I did something by myself. Maybe it was the previews. I did the previews by myself. And I had somebody talk about it's nice to see somebody who really loves the sport and lets it show. So I thought that was kind of cool. That made my day. And
anytime you talk to yourself, you must be passionate about something.
Right.
I mean, seriously, it's a different ball game when you're having to talk on your own. Like we have opinions, we can share them. But when you have to stare into a screen and basically script what it is that you're trying to talk about, that's the true passion right there of loving the sport. It's very hard to do.
Well, somebody recognized it in me this week, and it made my day. So I really appreciate that.
Well, and I know you're going to put up the banner, Sharon, and as you do that, I will give the shout out. I know I saw we were up to 53 subscribers. So again, we do have that following building, and we appreciate that, as well as the compliments you gave there to Sharon. And you're right. I mean, that's why the whole platform is here, is she has that passion. So.
And we do thank everybody for tuning in, because we do enjoy doing this, but it's always nice that somebody else enjoys it as much as we do. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next Monday night at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And we'll be talking about the next hot topics. We missed some tonight, so maybe we'll have some carryover as well. So with that, I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see you for the preview videos.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Chris.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.